Welcome back. Time now for me to answer one of the most frequently asked viewer questions, and it's not about bikes or riding kit or riding skills. It concerns the camera equipment that we use. More often than not, you want to know how we get our onboard shots, what sort of cameras we could recommend for that sort of thing and for the vlogging, travel type of stuff that we do. And some of you are also keen to know what types of cameras and sound equipment that we use to capture the images that you see on the rest of the show. If you're interested in this type of thing, then sit back, get comfortable. So for the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to fill you in on the type of kit you need to record your no doubt wonderful riding exploits. Thankfully, unlike when I started the program about 11 or 12 years ago, the equipment has got much more lightweight and portable and affordable, and it can be used for everything from hiking to general holiday duties as well. Our main cameras used to be the big shoulder mounted traditional looking cameras that you associate with TV production. They were hugely expensive. We could only afford one when we started, and we backed it up with a couple of the really little small handycam type cameras. These days we use what are called hybrid cameras, in that they take great video up to at least 4K, but now even 8K resolution, and they also make great cameras for photography. They look like traditional DSLRs that have a mirror that flicks up out of the way when you take a picture, or if you want to take video, it also permanently raises out of the way and you see what you're filming on the screen at the back of the camera. That sounds fine, and it is for static subjects, but it makes filming fast action really very difficult. You need to be able to see through the viewfinder for that sort of thing, so you need a mirrorless hybrid. No mirror means that while videoing you can look through the viewfinder that, instead of using the mirror to give you a real life view through the lens, rather uses a digital screen, effectively a smaller version of the one that you use on the back, so you can see what you're looking at as you record. We use Nikon, though any of the major brands will do. It's largely immaterial if it's a Sony or Canon, Panasonic or whatever. I use Nikon because of my photography hobby and because I absolutely love the colours that come out of this brand. I have a Z6, in Don's case it's a Z6 Mark II. We both use the single 24 to 200mm lens with it that gives us enough of a wide view when we need it and enough telephoto for most of our action shooting. In fact, we're filming on the Z6 at the moment. You're probably looking at about 50 to 60,000 rand for a suitable camera body like the Z6, but about another 20 to 25,000 rand for a lens with a similar range. I also use another camera body, Nikon's Z50, that uses a smaller APS-C sensor compared to the Z6's full frame sensor. It is very slightly less professional, if you like, but the results are still great. I use this one because it's smaller, lighter, and so are its lenses, and so basically it's easier to carry on a bike. The body with the three lenses that cover a full frame equivalent 15mm super wide angle to 450mm long telephoto probably cost about 50 or 60,000 rand altogether. I've also just invested another 8,000 rand in a second-hand 100mm macro Nikon lens for some extra juicy close-ups of bike details, or in fact the cameras I'm showing you now. But that's a real luxury purchase. For recording sound, we use these Zoom H5s that are a little bit bulky, it has to be admitted, but still small enough to stash out of the way. And they take two XLR mics. That's this mount. We've wasted a lot of money over the years with wireless mics, but they've just been too much hassle, too unreliable. However, if you want the convenience of a smaller wireless mic, and they are much more dependable these days, then Rode do some excellent models. But to get a good one, you need to budget for anywhere around the 8 to 10,000 rand range. We use this H5, which is very professional and reliable, but admittedly a bit bulky when we're standing and talking to camera. And we also put it in a bum bag and fit one of the mics inside of our helmets for onboard talking while we're riding. These aren't horrendously expensive either, probably about 10 to 12,000 rand each with a couple of decent mics. Then For the scene setting shots that are always a cool addition if it's possible to get them, in other words, if the weather is being kind enough or it's permitted to fly in whatever area you're in, there's the drone. Don uses a DJI Mavic 3, I think it is. It's quite big but offers great quality and is a very stable platform, but that costs about 35,000 Rand. I opted for portability, so with just a small bag I can actually fit my Z50 camera with the do-it-all 27 to 210mm lens and my DJI Mini 2 with the controller and 3 batteries for an hour and a half's worth of flying time. This is perfect for when I'm exploring an area, scouting new routes to film for our upcoming Destination Road series or locations for road tests. This drone is about 10 or 11,000 Rand now, I think, and the quality is still 4K fantastic, but it's the portability that really seals the deal for me. What everyone is always super interested in as bikers is what we use to get our onboard shots. It always used to be either GoPros, which we used to use, or cameras like this, the DJI Osmo. Same thing really, but I prefer it. It was the first to have a front screen as well as one at the rear, and that makes it easier to set up, get your shot right, and also a lot easier to use for vlogging. Now though, this really only gets used for vlogging duties. I basically never use it for bike tests because of the cameras I now use, which I'll get onto in a second. In my backup bag, unused and unloved, is this, the Inov H5. It's a dedicated helmet cam and at about 6,000 Rand costs about half as much as a GoPro. The company sent me this to do a review with, and although it does shoot up to 4K, I wouldn't recommend it. The stabilisation is a bit rubbish. The image quality isn't as good as the competition either, and the usability is also quite naff. It will take a dedicated mic, but it only works at super low speeds, which essentially means it's completely useless. I was going to do a dedicated review of this at some point. I really thought that it might become a useful tool for our filming, but it's just not up to scratch. The materials used, the build quality and the ease of use, which isn't easy at all and is time consuming and irritatingly finicky, mean it feels more like a prototype. For second-rate home movie stuff, it's passable, but if you want to share your footage, then spend a bit more and buy something else. If you want an action cam to record your biking exploits, whether it's just for you or if you're going to share the results, there's only, as far as I'm concerned, one type of camera worth getting these days, and that's a 360. And there's only one brand of 360 worth bothering with, and that's Insta360. And within their range, the best, most cost-effective option is the X3. That's this one here on the selfie stick. The name has changed slightly over the years as the models have moved on, but essentially there has been the X1, X2 and now the X3. Although I think the X2 is still available, spend a little bit more and get the X3. In the motorcycle kit package, ideally, that includes this selfie stick, and some fantastic quality, hugely effective motorcycle mounts. It'll set you back about 12,000 Rand. I've had a couple of the X1s and an X2, but now we've got 2 X3s. The X1 is still good, but it has been relegated to my backup bag, and when possible, especially when I'm filming my roads features, but also during bike tests to be fair, I use the X2 and both of the X3s on the bike at the same time. As far as I'm concerned, these 360s have made the traditional GoPro, DJI, Osmo action cams totally obsolete. They have moved the game on significantly, and you can do things with them that simply aren't possible with the GoPro type cameras. Being 360 cameras means that they film everything in all directions all of the time. These two transparent semi-spheres are the two lenses that provide the 360 coverage, and then software stitches the two sides of the images together almost seamlessly. It's not perfect, but it's very, very good. And when you decide where you mount the camera and know which direction primarily you're going to be filming, you soon learn to keep the one lens focused in that direction, limiting any possible interference from the stitching. You can see here that the camera itself isn't very thick, and it's the same width as the selfie stick that comes with the camera bundle. That means the stick essentially becomes invisible and will not show up in any of your footage if you mount it properly. It does the job even with it extended, the stick, to 1 metre or more, though it will bounce around alarmingly when it's extended that far. And yet the camera's built-in stabilisation is so incredibly good, you'll still get usable results. You'll be absolutely sure that there's no way you've captured any kind of watchable footage, and then you download and edit it and find out it looks like it never even moved a fraction of a centimetre. I'm as thick as a brick, I have to admit, when it comes to this technical stuff, but even I find the Insta360 really easy to use, including when it comes to downloading and then editing. In fact, to edit the footage, you don't even need to download it from the camera. You can do it all on your computer and use different marker points and frames and whatever to edit in a more traditional way, but I reckon you'd be missing one of Insta's greatest strengths. Use the phone and then you just move it around wherever you want to frame your shot, and you can zoom in and out and do it all absolutely seamlessly. It adds a level of, how can I put it, authenticity and natural movement to the camera shots that elevate the resulting footage compared to, say, the equivalent onboard shots from a traditional action cam like a GoPro Hero. When I mount a camera looking at me while I'm riding, so I can film myself talking, a few subtle movements during editing to keep my head to one side of the frame and looking towards the open side of the image, towards the direction I'm travelling, lends the footage a more dynamic feeling, especially through a sequence of corners. And that reminds me of another huge advantage. You can obviously shoot more than one angle from the same recording. So for instance, I can first use the recording to show my head, and then I can save that and re-edit exactly the same footage, remembering that it was filming 360 degrees the whole time, and use it to show the road ahead instead, or focus in on the bike's clocks, or across to the throttle or clutch action. Amazing, really. And this is what makes it such an incredibly versatile tool. Downsides? The major one is image quality that is more than good enough 90% of the time, but if you want to zoom in, be careful not to go too far because it starts to get quite pixelated quite quickly. And low light, the X3 is better than the X2, but as with the image quality, the traditional action cams are currently still a bit better. But having worked with these things for a couple of years now, I have absolutely no hesitation in saying that those drawbacks are far, far outweighed by the creative flexibility offered by these Insta360 cameras. And I think, really, that just about covers the kit that we use to make the programme. Oh, we do also have a gimbal, this monstrous thing, that we occasionally use to stabilise dynamic views with the bigger Z6 and Z50 cameras for beauty and detail shots, or when I want to walk and talk to the camera as it moves. It's a luxury, and at about 10 to 12,000 rand, I think it is, it's a luxury we could easily do without. If you want to do some YouTube videos yourself and share your biking life, and you have a passion for creating videos and stories, don't worry too much about having all of this expensive kit. You can do a brilliant job with just a decent phone camera, one mic that will plug into the phone, and one of these 360 cameras. You can even use the 360 cam to substitute for a drone in many instances, and also use it for your vlogging. I hope this has answered the questions that many of you ask me about the cameras we use, and has given you some ideas about a present or two, possibly, that you might treat yourself to. It is the season of giving, after all, and who's the most deserving of some of your Christmas generosity? Exactly, you are. Merry Christmas. See you next week.